I'm a historical interpreter out here on the island, and tonight I'll be doing a cell door demonstration for you. But if you do have any questions about Alcatraz or its history, feel free to ask me. It doesn't have to just relate to the cell doors. You can ask me any questions that you do have. One of the things that I always like to do before I actually start the demonstration is to remind you of how lucky you are to be standing where you are right now, because you came out here to enjoy a night in a maximum security prison. And some men were not so lucky. Some men would come out here to serve long sentences for their various crimes, and others would not come out here for imprisonment or enjoyment, but rather as part of their tough and dangerous job as a correctional officer. In fact, Alcatraz was the first maximum security penitentiary built in this country, and Alcatraz was built to keep men in. Now, when Alcatraz first opened its doors as a prison, it was a military prison, and it was a minimum security prison. And soldiers imprisoned out here in Alcatraz, so we're talking about the 1850s all the way till about 1933, they were imprisoned here for mainly disciplinary offenses. So they had gone AWOL, which is away without leave, got drunk on duty, or stole from another soldier, but relatively minor offenses when we compare them to the federal inmates that would start coming out here in 1934. Did anybody take a moment to look over to their left-hand side when they started the tour? Right over where that tour starts here sign was. Maybe a couple of you? So if you go back over there after the cell door demonstration, what you'll see is that the cell doors look a lot different than the ones that you're standing outside in. Those military cells over on A block over here, they're flat bar cells. They're very easy to escape from. All you need is a hacksaw blade. And they're also single key locks, which means that those military guards were walking up to these cell doors. They were turning their key in the lock and turning their back on a potentially dangerous inmate. Now, when they redid the doors to make it safer for federal guards, when Alcatraz became a maximum security federal penitentiary in 1934, they redid the doors to make it safer for the federal guards. So I'm going to operate these doors once again, and let's see if you can point out the two safety measures that make it safer for federal guards. So what's the very first thing you notice about how I'm actually operating the doors?
You're away from the doors.
I'm away from it, right? I'm operating them remotely at the end of the cell block, which means that I don't have to turn my back on these inmates. So that's first safety measure. Does anybody notice a certain color when I open the doors?
Red.
Yeah, the red. Everybody see the red painted in the door jamb? That indicates to the guard operating the doors that that cell door is open, and so thus the guard needs to be on alert. Now, in order to operate the doors, it actually required the action of two guards out here on Alcatraz. Does anybody remember what guards on the floor were allowed to carry on them?
A whistle.
A whistle. No weapons, no keys, right? Now, the warden would turn his eye the other way for a billy club or something like that, and they mentioned that during the audio tour. But as a general rule, they were not allowed to carry those things on them. So weapons and keys were held up and away from Alcatraz inmates, because keys in the hands of an Alcatraz convict, it is just as dangerous as a loaded weapon. So they had to keep those things way out of reach. So the guard on the floor would request the key. The key would be lowered down on a rope, like you can see right there. That key was never just dangling there. That would have been true psychological torment for the inmates, right? Because that's their freedom, dangling just out of reach. So the guard would lower the key down. The officer on the floor would open the doors, and then he would send that key back up. Now, there was one guard that, contrary to protocol, had kept a recreation yard key in his pockets, and that simple act may have changed the course of history. But I'll tell you about that officer in just a moment. What I'd like you to do right now for me is please close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that you hear this sound day